Tim Kliphuis. How's it going, man?
It's good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. So, take me from the beginning. Tell me your story, please.
Yeah, I'm a kid of a Dutch father and an English mother who came over after she met him, married him, and became a Dutch citizen. And she is a musician, still is at the age of 80. And my dad's sadly no longer around, but was very much into music. And I think at home my surroundings were a lot of classical music and some folk music, which was my mum's department. No jazz. So it's kind of ironic I became a jazz player.
That's really interesting because considering your music, it's you're like a really
it has a lot of jazz influences. Yeah. So I would say I loved the violin. Apparently, I chose to play the violin when my mum asked me, what do you want to do? I don't remember choosing it, but I do remember practicing it a little bit, not too much.
What does your mom play?
My mother was in the forefront of the recorder, so that's like Frans Bruggen, that type of 70s revival. She was in that. She was teaching in Holland at a conservatoire and kind of gave up her career because she had kids. So she's of that generation. Probably nowadays would have made a very different choice about that. Anyway, so that was Baroque music, classical music, but she also loved the violin. She always wanted to play it, but her parents never bought her one. So there was that love, and I think maybe that translated to me in some way. My first teacher also, not a coincidence, was a family who lived with my parents before they had me. They had shared a house, a big house in Utrecht. So I heard from a young age kids going up the stairs and then violin lessons. So I guess that's where my fascination came from. What are they doing? So as it happens, I chose kind of the most difficult instrument in the world. It's a lot of work.
Just to get a sound, it takes years.
Before it sounds
like a dying cat.
It's terrible. Yeah. It's terrible. And I also have now a few students who are studying jazz with me. A few of those started later in life, and it's such hard work to catch up and to get there. Still, I enjoyed it, but at high school, I was always doing sort of bands, more interested in guitar, a bit of bass guitar. I played the whole bass line of all the pieces in the Grease musical in my high school.
That's cool.
I wrote them out because I wanted it to sound like the real thing. We had a fantastic guitarist and a fantastic drummer, and I was just learning, so I had to up my game on that. So I learned to transcribe in high school, which is a good skill to have if you want to be a jazz musician.
Absolutely.
And then I got into this street orchestra as a student, and I wasn't going to study violin.
We're talking about all of this is happening in the Netherlands.
It's all in the Netherlands.
Okay,
I've never moved more than 50 miles from where I was born in Utrecht. So I was in Doorn, I was in Hilversum, Amsterdam, now I'm back in Hilversum. So I think I make up for that very small movement with my life, which is touring. I'm a touring artist. So I guess that is giving me the chance to see the world. I've been to Russia, America, South Africa, all of Europe, a little bit of Asia. And I guess I don't have the inclination to move in Europe. I'm in a good place. I have a family here, 3 kids. And anyway, just to go back to high school.
The street orchestra.
And after high school, I wanted to study something that would not follow my dad and the rest of my aunts and uncles who were all in sort of broadcasting. So they were with radio, with the newspapers. They were editors, translators. And they were fantastically talented language people. So I decided to do something with languages, but also something a little bit kind of cool. So I went into computer linguistics, which is no longer in existence, that's studies, but basically could have led to me joining Google. Thank God I didn't pursue that. But I did finish the studies, and there was a fantastic professor who's no longer alive, Remco Scha, who kind of was a polymath. He had maths. He was very into art. He loved making music. He knew all the string quartets from memory. All the string quartets there are. He made this database of all of them.
But he also from memory, like he could play them, or he just knew them.
No, he was a
by ear?
guitarist.
Okay.
He knew them by ear, and he could talk about them in incredible detail. But he could also go to like a convention of art professors and kick their asses. So he was very, very interesting. I would say maybe on the autistic spectrum, because he wasn't the greatest pedagogue, but he was just an inspiration. And that for me is the university thing. It's not only about the teaching, it's about the people who you see and who you can ask questions and see, do stuff and learn things from.
So if I understand you correctly, it's like community and mentorship in that sense.
I think more mentorship, yeah. And pedagogically, you would say, okay, he wasn't great, but he was a professor of basically everything. And he also built a guitar installation that played modern music with a robot on guitars, like hanging guitars with arms so it precludes, we're talking about the mid-90s, late 90s, it precludes all the AI stuff, all the YouTube and all that kind of stuff. He was really a cutting-edge guy, I think. So he was really cool with me then deciding in my second year that I did want to play the violin. And that's because I was in the street orchestra. The name is Ricciotti Ensemble. It's an Amsterdam-based student orchestra, which has been going since the 70s. The same time that we had De Volharding, Willem Broker, Louis Andriessen, people who wanted to revolutionize classical music, bring it into the street, make it for everyone, not just for the elites. And that orchestra was a student version of that. And it's still very alive. It still tours the world. I was lucky enough with them to go to Bosnia just after the war finished in 96. I was in South Africa in 95 after apartheid ended, when Mandela had his first year of governing. And many other things where you see the power of music and how it can make people really sad, but also uplift them, give them therapy. We played a lot for kids, orphans, all kinds of people who really, really needed music in hospitals, in prisons even. Played for mass murderers as well. But they need music too, and it actually talks to their softer side. So I believed very much, very quickly in the power of music, and I was getting a bit restless, so I thought I need to pursue this violin thing more. So I need to try and get into a conservatoire. And I found
How old were you when you got
I was 19.
19.
Which in violin age is old, like, you're a bit late starting now in the conservatoire. There's all these young talents who are in by their 17th and they already have won prizes in competitions. I was not that. But I found a teacher who believed in me and was also interested in this combi.
I want to sit more on that. How did it feel, actually, that thing of having like a predisposed rejection already?
I was not very fazed by that. I'm an optimist by nature, and I thought I want to make this happen, but I don't know it's going to be my career. I just want to get better on the violin. So I thought I'll find a way somehow, and if I don't, I'll have to have some private lessons with a really shit hot teacher or something like that. I was very lucky. Johannes Leertauer is his name. He's at the moment mainly a conductor. Teaches all around the world, but at that time very much a big violin class. And his dad was the professor who was leading Leiden University. So somebody with a background in philosophy, in languages. So he understood where I was coming from. He was is a broadly educated guy. And he kind of thought it was funny to, give this guy a chance. And he saw my dedication, I think.
We're talking predominantly classical, right?
Purely classical.
Purely classical.
100% classical. I just wanted to be a good violin player. So that's the best way to do it, is go to a conservatoire. And I was lucky with his help, with a committee that was skeptical, to go into Amsterdam and get accepted because of this guy's support. And they said, okay, it's on you. We give you a year. And the next year I did my next exam, and the guy who was most against me actually apologized and said, no, I was wrong. You're making great progress, which I thought was super cool. To say that, to show your softer side to a student who is still way below you. And so I actually felt quite at home in Amsterdam, but I was studying classical music and I had no connection with my band stuff in high school. So how am I going to combine these two worlds? And then I somehow managed to be given, I think for my birthday, a CD. And on it was a guy called Stéphane Grappelli. And he was a famous French violin player playing jazz. And I'd heard jazz before. I'd heard Jean-Luc Ponty. who was the modern kind of cool guy who was still selling out stadiums with his bands, and in the 90s when I was studying. So I heard him, and I did not understand what he was doing. And with Stéphane Grappelli, it was like, oh, so you can actually play classical violin, you can play that kind of style, but make it accessible in such a way that you get into jazz. It was a door opener. And he still is the door opener for all those, by now, thousands and thousands of violinists every year who or maybe tens of thousands, who come into this idea of, hey, I want to do this too. I want freedom on my instrument.
I think also for other instrumentalists. For me, when I heard him for the first time, I was like, oh, this is also possible in violin.
Yeah.
It was so surprising.
Yeah.
The timing, the assertiveness, the just the groove and swing.
And the beauty as well. The tonal beauty.
And the sound. The sound. The control is classical, but with so much groove and so much swing in it. So it was also when I heard him for the first time when I was 16, I was like, whoa, this shit is killing.
Yeah. He was really a kick-ass guy. Not totally accepted by the jazz police, I would say. I'll fast forward to that in a minute, but just to show you where I was. So I was listening to this.
And you were in your second year in
I was in my first year in my conservatoire,
okay.
which was my second university year or something like that. And I was thinking, I need to do something with this music. And then at the time we had this little newspaper, which was kind of, you bought it at, just shops, like a bookstore, a newspaper, kiosk. And it was called Via Via. And Via Via was an advert paper. You bought it purely for the adverts. It was basically Marktplaats in print.
Oh, it's a very functional name, Via Via. Yeah.
Via Via. And it had these small adverts in a few words. You could put your own advert there as well if you wanted to sell a bike. So it was basically people-to-people selling. And this advert was in there. I needed a bike. I was going to Amsterdam, and I needed a bike in Amsterdam. I didn't want to take my Hilversum bike because I still needed it in Hilversum. That was where my father and I were living, and I needed that in the town. So I just needed to buy a bike in Amsterdam. So I bought the Amsterdam Via Via, and in it was an advert saying, hot club band needs violin player. I mean, come on, like a month after I got that CD. No coincidence, sometimes serendipity just plays a role.
Synchronicity,
Synchronicity. And so I replied, and that became my first little band, which was in The Hague. So I was going to The Hague now for, let's say, weekly Saturday rehearsals, learning from the albums, which were basically, most was mixtapes I got from my band leader guy.
What was the repertoire?
It was purely Hot Club de France, which was early recordings of Stéphane Grappelli with Django Reinhardt. We're talking about 1934 to 1949.
It's exactly right down your alley of what you wanted.
That's perfect for me.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn all those songs, and I didn't have hundreds of CDs yet. I was buying CDs whenever I could, or old LPs at the time as well, in Concerto, which is still there, the shop in Amsterdam, Utrechtse Straat. Yeah, great shop, fantastic shop. Keep supporting it, please. And so I was building a collection of, I haven't got this song by this guy, and there's, so I needed all the songs that Stéphane Grappelli was playing on. I didn't care about Django Reinhardt. I knew that he was some kind of genius of the guitar, but I was into the fiddle, I was into the violin. And with this band, we tried to learn, and I was getting increasingly frustrated because I was basically the only on the way to being professional on my instrument. The others were amateurs. So they needed a lot of time, and I didn't. So after a couple of years of that, we actually managed to make it to the foyer of North Sea Jazz to play a performance there. When you come in the old North Sea Jazz in The Hague, in the Congresgebouw, before it had moved to Rotterdam. We got a gig, and I thought, this is the highest we're going to get with the band. So I wrapped the band up after that. And at that time, I was already in Amsterdam connecting to some hot club people. So there's a guy called Jan de Jong, who sadly just passed away, who's a very fine stylist of guitar in the style of Django. There's a guy called Reinier Voet, who is one of my best friends, and I've been doing my teaching camps with him since 2010. But I've known him since 96. So we know each other 30 years now, Yeah. And so I built up my own scene in Amsterdam, and also I got in touch with the gypsy community in Holland. There's quite a big community of gypsies of two tribes, Romas, who are more sort of Eastern European gypsies. They look quite different from the Sinti, who came in to Holland via North Africa, Spain and France. So they're a very different tribe, and they're all fans of Django Reinhardt now, because he was a Sinto and he led the way for them to basically turn their folk music into jazz. Mm-hmm. So there's a big community, and in Holland there was one group in the 90s which was the group. They were on the television all the time, not just on music programs. They were everywhere, and they were called the Rosenberg Trio. They still play. Stochlo is a good friend of mine. Nusha and Nonny, both good friends of mine. I played with them, recorded an album with them eventually. But before that, I really found the guru of every current day player, and his name is Fappy Laffertin. He is turning 75 he has just turned 75.
How did you meet him in that sense?
He met me because I asked these gypsy players who were in a band somewhere in Leiden in this jazz cafe. I said, can I learn from you? Can I have lessons? And they said, no, we don't teach. But they said, you can come to our camp and jam. So I said, okay. So my guitarist, the guy from the band, and me went to the camps and kind of hung there, and then we'd play. There'd be one guitarist there, and we'd start playing, and within half an hour, there were suddenly three guitarists, and a bass player would turn up. People would tell each other, hey, there's music going on. And they always had these kind of places, like a little jam venue in their camp, where they had like a village hall. You would have it in the old societies. And people would gravitate towards it if there was stuff happening. And one day, Fappy Laffertin was in the camp by accident, I don't know, or by design. Maybe he'd been tipped off. So he was listening to me, and he didn't say very much, and he disappeared. He didn't play. And I thought, that's Fappy Laffertin. I have all his albums, he's like a hero. And I said a few words. I was a bit,
starstruck?
A bit starstruck, a bit embarrassed, to speak to him. But I did. And 2 years later, fast forward 2 years, I'm at this gypsy party, which I've been invited to, which is not in The Hague, but in Gerven, near Eindhoven. And the Rosenberg Trio lives close by in Nuenen. And all the top gypsies, current day top gypsies, except for Fappy, live there, in that region. So they're all in Brabant. And they're all at the party.
I had no idea that they're all in Brabant.
There's a Jimmy Rosenberg, there's the Rosenberg Trio, there's Paulus Schaefer, lots and lots of others. Moses Rosenberg, the younger brother of the trio. And they're all there, and it's a party for their elder, the dad of one of these players. So he's celebrating his 70th or something, or 65th. And they play music. And I've been invited, so I've got my violin with me. And Tim, you should play. Okay, I'm a bit scared, all these red hot players. So I start jamming. I hold my own. I manage to not make a fool of myself. And Fappy is sitting there again, that same guy, Fappy Laffertin, sitting in the corner. Suddenly he's playing one tune. So fast forward another 2 years, I get a call, and he says, it's Fappy, I need a violin player. And so that was 5 years of touring with his band, 3 albums. That really taught me stuff. Really, really taught me stuff. How to be on a stage, to do a tour in England where we do 8 consecutive dates. So I have 8 chances to do my announcements because he didn't talk on the stage. I had to be the band presenter. And I got to learn that by doing it and correcting myself and trying to...
How old were you back then?
This is 2000, 99, 2000, stuff like that. So I was 26, 7, that kind of age, 25. Yeah. And that's, I would say, when my career started. I was kind of at the end of my studies in Amsterdam, doing a master's in classical, basically chamber music, with a Hungarian teacher named István Parkanyi, a fantastic, like the guy the string quartet guy in Holland for many years. Every great chamber music player went through his hands at some or had lessons of him. Great time. But classical. And again, that teacher was cool with me doing something that was not classical. In his case, he said, jazz. Yeah, I used to try play jazz, but I couldn't.
That's so cool.
But man. I have all Bill Evans's albums. Yeah. And he was whistling like move by Miles Davis to me, and I was like, "Whoa, this guy really knows his stuff."
Wow, because it's correct me if I'm wrong. It's a hit and miss in that sense, especially coming from the classical world. They can just be really dismissive of that.
Yeah, the older generation,
like
yes, and the school was very dismissive. When I came to the school, the director he thought it was not cool. I did once a little thing with a guitarist at an exam.
Why is that?
A little duet.
But why is that?
Why is this? Well, the guy who was at the time the director was very much a modern music aficionado, and modern music has sometimes got this kind of police mentality of it has to be serious, it has to be hard to listen to, it has to be an intellectual pursuit, and basically I think it comes from a deep down a wish that some people have of, let's say, impressing their neighbors. I really don't know why you would go to a concert that you don't really like, which was happening at the time. Not so much now, but certainly then. And it was extremely difficult music, but people had some kind of intellectual pleasure from it. But also they had something to talk about in the break, you know? And you could see them sitting there, and my intuition told me, I'm not sure if I'm right, but that they were sitting there trying to collect things to say in the break to impress their neighbor in the audience. A very strange way for me of listening to music. Anyway, I'm not saying that the director at that time was like that. I'm just saying that he hated that I was doing jazz in an exam going from year 3 to 4 or something like that. So he was very dismissive. My teachers were all of them, including my first teacher, Johannes Leertauer. Also, I had lessons with a very famous Dutch guy, Herman Krebbers, who was our greatest violinist, I would say, in terms of international name, and wonderful teacher. I had sort of monthly lessons with big violin concerto movements, or I'd have a big sonata, and I would go and get touched up, did a retouch. That sounds vaguely disgusting, but a makeover. I'd worked on it with my teacher, and then this guy would say, "Okay, now you're on the big stage. Let's get it up one level." He taught me most about teaching. He was cool with the jazz. So all my teachers were cool with me doing this because I had to tell them, because I had now got a career and I was playing in Holland as well with this guy, Fabio Laffertin. So I thought people are going to see it, so I have to tell them. And yet the director of the school was a lone wolf in voicing his disapproval. Fast forward a couple of years, master degree, Lucas Vis has become the director of the conservatoire. A conductor, also very in the forefront of modern music, but a very broad musician, incredible conductor, very big intellectual. He loved it. So he said, "Hey, Tim, I hear you play jazz." And I was like waiting for the blow. And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "But why are you not having lessons with us? We have a jazz department." I said, "Well, nobody ever offered, He said, "Man, come on, you choose who you'd like to have lessons with." So it's like a kid in a candy store now,
Right.
So I was looking around and thinking about generations, and I wanted a connection with my era, the 30s, 40s. So I chose Ferdinand Povel, who is the kingmaker of saxophone. All the saxophone teachers in the conservatoire jazz department right now, they're all his students. Starting with Benjamin Herman, who's internationally quite well known, and in Holland very visible. But people like Joris Roelofs and the Van Gelders and all those guys.
Yeah.
And I thought I'll go to him, because I haven't cracked it completely. I still need to learn. So yeah, great, thank you, school. So and then it turned out into weekly sessions, because he said just come every Monday. I was like, okay, I was not a guest student anymore. I was like in his class, which did sometimes mean that I had to go to the pub across the road where he would be having a beer with his director. They were both there while the school was happening. I had to say, I think I have a lesson. He said, "Oh, yeah, no problem." He'd drink up and he'd cross the road with me. I'd been standing in front of a locked room, So that was the vibe in the jazz department in those days. Very interesting.
Like substance abuse, you mean? Or?
No, just being very, very relaxed about the teaching.
Sure.
But alcohol, was there. Yeah, I would say, yeah.
It sounds like, when was it during the day? How
it would have been like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. They were in the pub.
Downing like a beer, yeah.
Yeah, they were just having fun, talking to each other. They were pals and discussing, I'm sure, work things as well. but with a drink. Yeah. Anyway, so Ferdinand Povel became another big influence on me. He was, of course, I would say a hardball player, in effect, or he was totally versed knew everything about Charlie Parker, everything about Sonny Stitt, and he would have had a mega solo career if he'd chosen, but he wanted to be in Holland, and he chose to be in Dutch ensembles like Sky Masters and groups like that, like predecessors of the Metropole Orchestra. And so I was lucky. He was there, and he just said, come every week. So he really also did, like the classical superstar guy who I went to to up my game, I did the same with Ferdinand, because he said, the difference between a line that's like a scale and when you jump, when you do the arpeggios, the timing's different. I'm like, really? He said, yeah, it's slightly more straight when you do a run, but when you're arpeggiating, it's slightly more triplety. I was like, whoa, okay, that was a mind-blowing thing. I teach that to all my students. And it's true. It's absolutely true. He was a fantastic analyst of this music. He knew everything about his heroes. He knew everything about the old songs. And he said, Tim, I'm glad you're doing old songs, because I have too many students who come with a piece of paper and they don't do things from memory. And it's all these new songs and they still haven't got the basics. That's kind of what he said back then. I don't know if it's true, but we had a rapport going. So my final exam at the school was actually two halves, a classical and a jazz half. And Ferdinand was in the committee for both as a jazz player. And he was looking at players it was Mars and Venus, there was players from the classical department who'd never shaken hands with these jazz players. And there was one famous Dutch jazz violinist who's called Frans Popti. He had his own bands. He was on the radio a lot in the 50s and 60s. Another role model for me. He was a friend. And I invited him to be my external committee member. So he was there too. He had his royal little lintje, as we say in Dutch, his commendation. He had that. He was really proud. He was 82 at the time. I organized for him to be picked up in The Hague, brought there with a limousine, because my guitar friend was a taxi driver for a limousine company. So he got the royal treatment. And they were sitting there, but at the same time, there was, my classical teacher and all kinds of big shots. Alexander Carr, who was the Concertgebouw leader and who's now back in America again. All those kinds of people. Ilya Grubert, fantastic top soloist. And they were looking at each other like, this is weird. So I'm not sure. I don't think it ever happened again until I came back into school to teach. And I now teach, and I do exactly this. I make the connection between...
In which conservatory?
In Amsterdam.
In Amsterdam,
yeah.
Okay.
I make the connection between the classical playing and the jazz playing, and I show people that it's just one music,
exactly.
And we have committees that are always mixed.
Yeah.
There's always going to be a composer or a theory teacher. There's going to be a classical teacher in there. There's going to be a jazz person in there. And I'm kind of the bridge. I love that the school has asked me to do this, and that they take it really seriously.
Yeah.
I'm very proud that that's my old school that's given me the chance to give the current generation of students what I missed, which was a connection between the two worlds. Because before I got into jazz, into the jazz department with lessons, there was no way I was going to be able to connect. And I asked lots of questions. Everybody just said, no, we can't do that.
Because it was segregated in that sense.
Yeah. And the segregation is starting to disappear.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy to be a tiny part of that.
Do you think it has to do with actually the times or the technology that we're facing right now? Like, let me just
elaborate.
Clarify. Yeah, elaborate. So the thing is, because we have access right now to any type of recorded music, like this is if it's out there, it's on a streaming platform, and unless people are, in the whole...
they're Joni Mitchell or Neil Young.
Yeah, and, unless they're like protesting something very specific, which is a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. Like, let's say the majority of the music that has ever been recorded is on these streaming platforms. And because it's so accessible right now, it creates actually a globalized perception of what music is.
Yep.
Do you think it's because of that, or because people are actually starting to wake up, or it's a combination of both?
I think it's a combination. Yeah. I used to always say that the internet has changed this segregation, definitely, because of the accessibility of the other types of music. And of course, now if you like somebody on YouTube or Spotify, you're going to get a recommendation, and it could cross over into rock or into jazz if you're a classical player. It could, and for some it does, and you can end up in a rabbit hole going, "Wow, this is great! I need to research all of this."
Yep.
So the students I see come into my lessons, and all the second years it's compulsory. They have to do improvisation with me if they're a string player. So all the bowed strings and guitars and harps. So I see all those guys. And where, let's say, 10 years or 15 years ago, I would go to a conservatoire somewhere in another country or even here and do a workshop. And they'll be so scared. And now it's just like, okay, yeah, I'm a bit nervous about this, but yeah, I'm going to do it. And that difference makes for, I think, much more appreciation also of their colleagues in the other department, because they know it's an actual trade. It's something you have to learn. It's not something you can just smoke a cigar and drink whiskey and then you can play jazz. Like some people still think. It's like, oh, that's very old school to think that. And it's completely wrong.
It's a very high level craft.
And so you just need to do your 10,000 hours just like you do in your classical, or more, much more.
And I had a question about it. Yeah, exactly. How come that actually it was suppressed, this thing of improvising within the classical world? Because if you look at the great composers, they were great improvisers. It came from improvising. It's not that, there's this, like, I understand, okay, the romanticized version of he woke up and he heard the string quartet perfectly in his head, which I believe.
Maybe Mozart.
Maybe. That also has to do with marketing, I believe. The majority of the great composers, I believe, they were a lot in just trying out things, improvising.
Yeah, look at Beethoven.
His manuscripts are just
a mess.
It's like, dude, what are you on? It's like just ripping out papers. But I'm saying that this has been suppressed completely. Why is that?
Yeah.
Why has it been so suppressed?
I've talked about this a lot with people and asked the same question, but as far as I can see it, or my sort of uninformed non-musicologist's analysis, is until the late 1800s, it was still going on. If you were a violinist, you'd also play the piano really well so that you could accompany your students. So there wasn't the hyper specialization that we start to see in the, let's say, 20s, 30s. When jazz actually starts being recorded for the first time. And there's no coincidence that this
20th century we're talking about.
20th century, 20s, 30s of that. Let's say in 1890, most violinists play another instrument. So why does that change? Why do they only play the violin and spend all their hours just on that instrument? It's because of the recording industry, where if you're a classical musician and you're playing older music, you're basically a cover artist, right?
Yeah.
You're like a band saying, okay, I'm going to do the Beatles, but differently.
Absolutely.
And so there's only so many covers you can make. So how do you see the difference between different recordings of the one violin concerto? Only by saying, well, this one's better, or it's, technically different or something. Or, okay, musically you can differ a little bit, but you're following a score. So we're not talking about note changes a lot. Sometimes, but not a lot. So it's all about a sort of arms race now to who can produce the best recording.
Which affects also the rubrics and the production of it, which people are doing thousands of takes.
Thousands of edits as well.
Exactly, that's what I mean.
And so...
the question, then it bears a question. Can they actually reproduce it on stage?
Yeah, well, I will give you an example of that. One of my classical violin heroes, I would say, is Frank Peter Zimmermann. He's now getting older, but he was at that time in his 30s when I became aware of him. What a phenomenal beast. That guy is just crazy, a crazy good violinist. Musically, very centered, tone beautiful. Anyway, one of my heroes. So I buy this album in concerto because I see it. I think, I've got to listen to him more. So I buy it. Really disappointed. Why? Because it's boring. So I'm thinking, okay, so he's a great violinist, but maybe he's boring. Then a few months later, I'm in a car with the radio on, and there's this insane recording of the Brahms violin concerto. And there's one high note that the soloist just overshoots, it's like, whoa, he's taking, or she, I don't know who this is taking chances. sounds like, it could be Concertgebouw Orchestra, but I don't know the soloist. Well, it's Frank-Peter Zimmermann with the Concertgebouw Orchestra, with Bernard Haitink. I mean, a pairing like that. That's the Arsenal versus Barcelona, And so I've suddenly realized that live playing for him is a really different thing than recording albums. So my thing is, okay, what you're saying is true. Your album creates a sort of technical perfection that you can't reach live, but also people don't go to live concerts for perfection. I don't think it's for the thrill of knowing that somebody can make a mistake.
But it's also, it passes so quickly.
Also,
you're experiencing, I mean, you're sitting in that space with other people.
Yeah.
You're seeing people playing in front of you. It's a massive amount of information that is being thrown at you.
Yeah.
It's, unless there is a real like train wreck happening there of people stopping and it's people are in different sections, you hear it being thrown at you. The mistakes are really not graspable in that sense.
And I think musicians are being, or have traditionally, since that hyper-specialization, so since the 20s, 30s of the last, so 100 years ago, only, in a 500-year really active concert industry, they have been brainwashed to think that every tiny mistake is a disaster.
Yep.
And so that is starting to change now. So there is a new generation of players teaching at the conservatoire who are much more interested in mental health and in music making, actual music making, and not only chasing the perfection ideal. There's another reason, I think, why we have this hyper-specialization. So why that, if you do that in classical, then definitely you're not going to include jazz or improvisation in your studies, because if anything, improvisation, when you start doing it, it's really messy. So you can't start with a perfection ideal. So that's the first thing, the first switch I have to turn off with my students, is turn on the creativity switch. And
although by the time, by the time you become a professional, it's like the album just needs to be like, also the solos, you can edit them completely and put them together, and it's like, and then you have this like perfect solo that you curated, and of course it's improvised.
Yeah.
Again, this thing of, is it improvised or is it actually, let's say, rehearsed to the point that
composed?
Composed in that sense. Let's say composed with with quote unquote composed, because you change a little bit here or there, but you have just an idea exactly of where it's going. The band knows where it's going. So that's really that thing of, where are we going with that?
Well, I think that's how much you do it, because always in the history of jazz, and I know this, for instance, from one of the from Django Reinhardt, actually, the gypsy guitar guy, he has multiple takes of one song, and each take will start the same. Or he'll have a section where he does a chord thing, and it's verbatim. It's exactly the same. I do the same, and I have this from the old Americans and the old British players who, in my opinion, as a European, had the top quality or the top knowledge, experience in the style that I wanted to play, which was 30s, 40s swing jazz. Not necessarily gypsy jazz, just swing jazz. And so people like Bucky Pizzarelli, Les Paul, I got to meet and play with, all kinds of Houston Person, slightly younger players who are in that, who had all the legendary names that are long gone now. They played with them. And they also all say, if something's good, you do it again.
Yeah.
So,
think about this conversation that we're having right now. We're in a form, in a specific form. We're bouncing off each other. I'm not making up words that would not mean anything to you. We're having a conversation. That means that it's coming from a part of yourself that you can, let's say, respond to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know where the conversation is going to go. But we still
have your vocabulary, and those are in jazz, of course, the licks.
Exactly. Yeah. At the same time, it's like the whole like culture of the person comes into play in that. That's something that, for instance, in jazz, at least when I was in New York, I saw how people are trying to really make their own vocabulary there. Of course, they're coming from, the tradition.
Yeah.
They studied it in MSM or New School. And then what they were more interested in is like, how can I express my life at this moment? How can I have a vocabulary of myself today?
Yeah.
Today. Still keep the time very, very tight. Still listen to each other. still know exactly what the vocabulary within the chord and the the chord scales and all that stuff. But how can I say something new that I haven't said until this point? You know what I'm saying? It's and there I felt really that it was like very fresh in that sense.
I think it's a combination of. I think individuals are what counts. You can talk about styles and schools and what have you, but for me, it's always been my interest has not been limited by styles or by movements or anything. I just go for an individual. Like David Bowie resonated with me. It's also my age. I was like in the 80s. I was small, but I was getting woken up to pop music a little bit. Let's Dance was on the radio. Man, what's this? And then you find the other stuff. My kids all got into David Bowie, especially the eldest two. They really,
what
really...
What are the ages?
21, 19 and 14. Yeah. So, and so for me, in jazz also, I'm always looking for people who really resonate with me in what their message is. And for myself, I try to use what I've learned in a creative way. So I will always use vocabulary, words, licks that are from people I've actually worked with, or from the albums, or from Grappelli, or for whatever. Jean-Luc Ponty, who I got to appreciate a lot later when I was a better player. But I try to, or I never would ever play the same solo, but I have little elements that are nice and that you can sort of even slot in. And I'm thinking about the energy level.
Yep.
So if you're playing a concert, we have at the micro level, you have your notes. Then there's a sort of middle level where you look at a song, and then the macro level is the concert. Did I start with a song with this energy? What do we need now in the second song? We've programmed maybe the songs already, so within the song you can change the energy so that it fits a sort of journey for the listener. And sometimes I've had a concert where I could not do anything wrong. It's like you have sometimes those days, and that's called flow by some people. And I was trying my best to make it go wrong. I was like starting on, really weird places or weird notes or timing it. It just all fell together. And the band, I've worked with them for nearly 20 years now. So we know even then that day was probably, we were as a band 8 years old or something. And we really, really tight. And I couldn't throw them either. It's like, and then thankfully after a whole concert half, it was break time, and I thought, my God, this was actually the perfect half. Audience were so with us. It was in Lausanne, I still remember it, in Switzerland. And I thought, what's going to happen if I do the second half perfect too, Where am I going to go from here? I can play other songs, I can make new compositions, but is it going to ever be as good? And you know what happened? The second half wasn't as good. And I think that's for a reason, because I think we always need to have a point on the horizon. That's our dream goal. This is the concert of concerts. This is how I took the audience. They wept, they laughed, they did all those things. They came out changed.
Isn't it funny that, like, did you ever have it with recordings that you listen to yourself like, fuck, can I do this again? Actually, that was so good. Like, can I actually reproduce this?
Yeah.
I mean, I have moments, and I'm just like, whoa, because it's exactly what you're saying. That point in the, that point in the horizon that you think to yourself, there is somewhere to grow. And then if you think, wait a second, did I reach the ceiling? It's an illusion, of course, of that moment.
Well, it has to be, because if you were to reach that and to fully reach that, your life's over, man.
Yeah.
You got to study something else, because that's you done as an artist in that job. Because there has to be something that you can get excited about. I get excited about new pieces that I'm writing or new projects that I'm doing, because I can envision what they will be like, and hopefully what they will be like for the audience.
Yeah.
I know that I'm growing as an artist, which I really think about that, and I try to grow. And I certainly have grown. If I look back 10 years, I'm a much better artist in general, not just player, but philosopher or whatever I would call it. That side, it's maturing, life experience, all those things. You can't buy that. You can't fast track it. You get there. You'll get there too when you're my age. Sorry, you're not there yet. So.
So I'm getting ageism here.
Reverse ageism.
You didn't even listen to my music and you sing.
Exactly. This is just a fact of life, right? We are going to get more interesting as we get older.
Are you sure you're not Middle Eastern? No.
Maybe somewhere going way back. Maybe that's why the gypsy thing appeals to me.
Oh my God, that's such a Middle Eastern thing to say.
Yeah.
Like when you're still young. It's like
Yeah. Well, I really enjoy getting older. And a lot of people are very worried and I'm just thinking, yeah, but look what I'm doing now. I couldn't do that 10 years ago. So, and that I think is the journey of every artist. And that's what makes our job so great, because we can stay kids, we can stay enthusiastic about stuff and be naive and stupid. At the same time, we get life experience. So the stupidity and the naivete, we do better.
Well,
Isn't that great?
Not for nothing, it's called playing. Don't forget that. It's not that you're saying, I'm going to now work on the violin. No, you're going to play the violin. You're going to practice. Practice it's a whole different thing. It's like the spiritual path that we chose for ourselves, to have this like very deep relationship with a thing,
that fascinates us.
Yeah, it fascinates us too. That it doesn't end. Also, there's a constant, like it's a bottomless pit of interest. Of like you can discover more things. And
it's a rabbit hole.
And especially now with what we said in the in a different part of the podcast here, how music became globalized, that you can just have access to crazy amounts of music that will inspire you constantly and give you more and more ideas.
Oh yeah, you need many lifetimes to listen to all that you would like.
It's insane what is happening right now. What is your process with composing? How do you get to that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And it's also, I guess, linked to my philosophy. So just a little bit about that. My mother is not only a musician, but also very much a nature lover and somebody who's a bit activistic about that as well. So she's also a voluntary guide who takes people to see, mushrooms in the forest or bird watching, etc. So she wants to enthuse people and to get them to love our planet, so that their effect on this planet can be better. They can be part of the sort of trying to find a solution for our presence on this planet, which at this time is incredibly destructive for us in the end. The planet will be fine in 1 million years, but we're having real problems with climate change, with how we steal so much from the earth, extract all the time because of money. And so she is that person, and I guess I just was raised by her, and my dad was probably less like that, but she definitely had an impact on me. And I've always had this in my life as when I'm flying, I'm thinking, how can I do it in such a way? I need to go to America, but I don't want to fly, 2 times or 3 times if I can do it once. So let's do touring. Let's make a long tour. I won't go anywhere for a weekend. I go to Britain, I'll be there for 10 days. And that's become a philosophy and a way of life for me, touring, because I chose it to be that. And sometimes it maybe doesn't make the most money, but that's of no interest to me. I make more than enough. And I need to think about these things. But in the pandemic, I was really triggered because I thought, oh, right, there's no flying now and we're stopping everything. This is a great moment to sit down and reevaluate what's going on in our society and change stuff. Nothing changed. Everything just was about COVID, which it's totally right, because it's a horrible disease, which a lot of long COVID sufferers now who have been affected for years. But at the same time, we didn't use this chance of stagnation to actually make a plan for the future. People seem to be really bad at that right now. They seem to be much better after the Second World War in the 60s, 50s. They were looking ahead. Now, I don't know what's going on.
No, people are just distracted like really quickly now.
Yeah, and there have been books written about that. We call it Soma in what's the book about? I always get his name wrong. The colleague of George Orwell, Brave New World.
Aldous Huxley.
Aldous Huxley, thank you, the half-blind guy. Soma, he calls it, and which is a sleep drug basically. Yeah. And that is, of course, technology is the Soma for us in this day
which
and age.
He actually took it from the yogic tradition, somatic.
Yeah, and it's a Sanskrit word, isn't it? I think. I'm just reading about language change, so I'm into this now. Anyway, so
it's passive. It's called passive. Yeah.
Passive, I thought I can't be in my life, I can't impact it in a huge way, but I can do something through my music. So I can tell this story to people if I write music about this. So I'd already started working on something that I was going to call the 5 Elements, and it became a sort of climate piece. Because
that's in 2020 you got it out, right?
220, yeah.
220,
yeah. And the interesting thing for me was that it was so much easier to write music with a very clear goal. So I wanted to write something about earth, about wind, about water. And it was much easier to sort of get into an atmosphere and write a piece that conveys that. So that's kind of my process is actually being inspired with an idea first.
So, okay, so you have the inspiration with an idea. Take me then to that moment that actually a melody comes out. What happens then?
Yeah, I think language or the sort of sound that I want to make. So fire is something that, has this kind of whispery thing, but it's also scary. So it has to be bombastic, maybe. So I just then try to find a style that fits that. And for the 5 Elements, I actually just went back to sort of more minimalist or neoclassical style. I love Terry Riley. I also really love King Crimson. And cool. Because of the patterning that happens there, that Fripp is doing with his guitar and guitars. And that links also to, Talking Heads and other groups that have that sort of African thing of linking rhythms, patterning. So that became the focus. And I just thought, okay, I can do something that is more watery, but still has that patterning. I can do something that's more fiery. And so I kind of tried things out. And I compose with my violin. I'm a really crap piano player. I had my lessons at the conservatoire. I studied. I was a very good boy. And 2 weeks after my exam, I was able to do nothing at all anymore. It just evaporated. I don't have the brain for piano. My mum's the same. My brother is the same. Forget it. So I compose and I have the violin, and I use that to just, and I visualize a lot. I'm pretty good
visualize
at
a lot, and then it's like when it hits, you put it on paper immediately, or it's like, okay, so you immediately write it,
or I just sing into my phone. That's where I do most of it. Or whistle.
Interesting. Interesting. And is it something that you are actually making time for, or it's coming by itself?
Both.
Both.
Yeah, I would say I make time for the sitting down is the compositional process, which is creating a piece out of something small. But the something small is really hard to force. I've had to do it, but it's better if I'm just in the woods running or something. Usually, I love running. I'm a pretty good runner still. And I do off-road, so I go in nature. I run in Hilversum. We have the heath around us and the woods, so I run there. And every day is different, and it gives ideas. My head clears, and I get a melody. That's usually where all the pieces come from running. Yeah. And then I need to not forget it. So if I have my phone with me, I'll whistle into it. Or if I don't, I have to run home very quickly, repeating the thing in my head, because I will forget. I'm not great with recall of new stuff. And then I write it down, and then I just think, okay, well, what does this mean, and what instrumentation should I have for this? Where does it go? What's the story? And I had the concepts about earth, air, etc. already, and I'm sure that one or two of those pieces there was no start yet, and that just popped up during that process, especially COVID, because we were all housebound, so I was outside a lot.
Yeah. And tell me about your work with Triptych. How did it come about? What was the thing there?
Well, actually, sort of around that same time, Maya Friedman, who is the sort of artistic conscience of the label, a very fine cellist, she got in touch with me and said, we'd love you to do something for Triptych. And I think it was even just before COVID hit. And I said, I'd love to do that, but with my trio, what I'm doing now, we have our own label, and I can't bring them in, plus they're in Scotland and Ireland, so we do things based in Scotland. That's where our label is based. But I would love to do something in Holland. I've been thinking about this, and if I see a chance, I'll get in touch. So she said, well, great, let me know. And the next step after making the 5 elements was writing a piece based on actual talks with scientists. And I called it Cosmos because there was a very famous scientist called Alexander von Humboldt in the 1800s or late 1700s. And he actually was the first guy to put together, if people change something, like they cut a forest down, it affects how many clouds you have above. So he was able to connect weather and biology on the ground, which had not been done. He was a polymath. He was doing everything. And I read a book about this by Andrea Wolf, and it just, wow, I wanted to do something with that. So I thought, scientists, I need to speak to scientists. And then instead of doing my idea of come on, guys, we need to do something here on this planet, I can actually learn something first, have an informed point of view, and write about that. And I thought, and Triptych has to be involved with this, and I want to do this with Maya. And she then said, I said, I want a piano too. So I want to do this with just a classical piano trio, but with non-classical music. And she said, Mark van Roon would be great. They already had an album with him, and he's a very fine pianist. I knew of him, but hadn't met him yet. So we had a session together, and it clicked so well that... nice. 2 years later, we've done I don't know how many shows and made people cry and laugh. So
great.
And the process for that was talk with a scientist. I was lucky to have 5 very famous Dutch professors in different fields: biology, philosophy. Robert Dijkgraaf, who was still cabinet minister at that time, who was a string theory guy, astronomer who found out. Amina Helmi, she found out that the Milky Way is actually a compound of 2 galaxies, and they bumped into each other before the sun was born. Like big names who have had an impact in that world. I listened to their stories. I looked them up. I actually made podcasts about those. It's called Componeren of Verzuipen. It's a podcast on NPO Luister. And those 5 scientists, the talks with them were like my search of what is the future going to look like? What do we need to do? Where are the problems? And then writing something about them, which could be about their story. In the case of Robert Dijkgraaf, a tiny little element called quarks, a subatomic element with sort of movement, that vibration that I loved, and I thought I'll write that. But with Amina Helmi, it was the sort of dreamy thing of looking at the stars and realizing there are no borders. We shouldn't have borders, and weather doesn't know borders, and the climate doesn't do borders. Why are we trying to build walls around ourselves? That was a beautiful thing she said, and the music just came that way. So for everyone, I made a piece, and there were 3 more scientists who joined live shows who were not in the podcasts, and for each of those, I've written a movement. So there are 8 movements in total, very concrete. Nice. About somebody, and all those people I still talk to. So
great,
yeah,
great, fantastic. Thank you for sharing this. It's coming on the 27th, right, of December.
Yes, well, it's something like that. It's a Christmas album, we say. But looking ahead and sharing my worry about our future on this planet, basically. And the next stage in this process is my next music will not be about this message, which I've told, and I know that humanity actually knows all this. We know because scientists have told us everything. They've shown us the way forward, and we're not doing it. Why? So my next phase is going to be look at people who are on really extreme sides of the polarized society that we're in now. So, okay, it sounds a bit cliche, but maybe a very conventional farmer they were in their trucks on the A12, or an Extinction Rebellion activist who's like completely the other side of the spectrum, who are also on the A12, and they were nearly fighting each other. I would love to tell their stories with music and bring them in a room together, somehow get them a bit more soft.
Are you using also recordings, or is it all like being, let's say, translated into melodies, or are you actually using...
No, it's actual classical composition in the sense that I write notes, but that's Cosmos, the album. My next project, which
I'll talk about more about the next project.
Yeah, my next project, I don't know yet, because with scientists, we have them on the stage with us, and they talk within the concert. So they have short 3-minute talks, which are very personal. They're not like TED talk or a university talk. They're about themselves and how they relate to the subject. And then we play music that illustrates that, or their talks illustrate the music. I'm not sure if you could do that with non-professionals who are not used to talking. So I'm thinking about various ways of bringing these stories in, and it could be that we need a recording of somebody talking, or that I would have to relate it myself with my voice, or bring an actor in to do it, or not sure yet. So that's going to be my next journey, I guess.
Interesting.
Is trying to bring people together a bit more.
And this will be also a triptych, or?
If an album comes out, then that will definitely be a triptych album, but I'm not even thinking that far ahead. I'm really happy to have Cosmos out right now, coming. It's recorded, it's beautiful recording, as we know from triptych. Very, very high quality in Schiedam in the West Church, which Brendan, the engineer, knows very well. It's a beautiful space, and beautiful sounds come out of it. So
I just recorded there, so it's beautiful space. Beautiful space. Yeah, the best piano sound he got so far. That's what he told me, at least. It's really beautiful stuff. Tell me your worst gig possible.
Okay, worst gig. Well, I'm going to say worst gigs. And
Please.
I've been very lucky, so don't expect a horror story, because I haven't had...
No kidnapping?
No, I haven't been stopped mid-play. There's been... Well, with the student orchestra, we've had some sort of demo-type performances where the police came and put an end to it. That has happened.
That's in the street,
but
right?
that's part of the plan, right? Is that you get stopped. So my own music, my own shows, I started my career really after the gypsy connection with guitarists, where I was always playing the violin with a guitarist. So it was their show. So I decided for myself in 2004, I need my own name at the top, and I need to do my music, my choice of songs. And there was a promoter in England who kind of was interested in me, but she said, I don't like the violin. And but you have one chance to convince me.
She was interested in you, but she wasn't interested in the instrument.
Yeah, she liked that I was passionate about jazz and that I was a Dutch guy coming new into jazz. And I had some really good contacts already, some really good people who were supporting me. So she kind of had, they maybe talked to her as well, I don't know. But she said, I don't really like violin. So you have one chance to convince me, and that's to play at my club near London. And it was basically a local rhythm section. So I went there and I played. It was a nice rhythm section. They were not the greatest players in the world, but they're good players. And the whole club just went mental. They loved it because they never hear violin in the club because she hates violin. She's the programmer, right? They're always hearing saxophones, with all due respect, piano, guitar, trumpet. That's their instruments. So it was a bit of a novelty, and I played okay, and the band played okay, and there was some good swing. And she said, okay, now I like the violin. So I'm going, okay, so I convinced her, that's good. She said, next year I'll set up a tour, and there'll be like 6 or 7 shows, and they'll all be in these jazz clubs like this one. Everywhere you have a house rhythm section. So a couple of those, more than a couple.
That's a recipe for...
Yes, more than a couple were people who were actually not only uninformed about my music, which is fine. But if you're a good jazz player, we make it work. We play 5 minutes before the show, and then we're good to go. But they were actually actively dismissive of my being a violinist. It can't be good if it's a violin. So, guys, we're going to have next week is going to be, is the violin guy come? I don't know. It's not going to be good, is it? Nah, it's not going to be good. So that was their attitude when I arrived. And after the first one of those, where I was a bit shocked, I was like, how the hell can you decide on the basis of an instrument somebody's quality? They hadn't listened. Okay, it wasn't as easy to listen. There wasn't Spotify in 2004, and YouTube was nowhere. So I guess they didn't go to the shop and buy my album. That's fine. Anyway,
they
had this prejudice. Yeah, and I'm thinking, why would you do that? Jazz is all about exploration, and why are you so narrow-minded? Anyway, so the first show I had to really fight, and they were like, So the second show, that was my worst gig, and I did the gig. I made sure that however tonight's going to go, I'm going to play well. I'm going to do my thing well, whatever they do, which is a very negative way to play. So the next show, which was the day after, somewhere else in the country in England, I thought, okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to do shock treatment. And so I would give them my charts, which were just pieces of A4 paper with some chords, nothing complex. And I would play one song that they all knew. I Can't Give You Anything But Love. Very simple song. It's G major. Everybody can do it. Winds are fine. Pianos are fine. Rhythm is easy. It's not fast. And then I would play another song after that, After You've Gone, which was in the same key but starts on a C chord. And so it starts a little bit different. And I would play a slow version. And I would say, okay, so this is the chords. Great. And then I'll go into double time. You just give me a break here and I'll double up. We'll go into a fast version of it. I didn't tell them it was more than double time. So I decided to go as fast as possible on that second song. So the first song would be like, oh yeah, this guy's okay. And then it would be like the slow thing. They're going, okay. And then I'd go into the double time. And it was more than double time because they had to give me a break. And I gave a very clear break. I set the tempo and it was 2.5 times as fast. And you see their eyes going like, oh shit. And then they'd have to do like this. And because I'd played with the gypsies, one thing I could really do well was play pretty fast. Probably a lot faster than the average saxophone guest they had. Scott Hamilton was at that time, still is, big favorite. But his tempos wouldn't be my top tempos. Yeah. And so they were like, oh my goodness, I can't do this. And after that song, they would always be good as gold. But it's very sad that you have to do that, that you have to do some kind of, I'm better than you, or,
To flex, that you have to
flex your muscles. Yeah. That's not what music is about. No. Anyway, so my first gig was the one before I found out.
Jazz can be polluted by that a lot of times.
Yeah.
By the flexing, Jazz has that sometimes.
I think that's unhealthy. So I think we need to tell people about that and let them know that jazz is actually community music.
Exactly.
And that we have to also in jam sessions, we have to be much more inclusive. Of course, if you're, the cliche of a band and then a singer comes and she says, oh, I sing this piece in C, and then she starts on the wrong note because she doesn't sing it in C major. So the band have to adapt, and then she leaves out the bridge. And then there's this joke about a big band leader, it's a British joke, and they have the last rehearsal before the concert with the big band, and the singer is there, and the conductor says, before we start, just a few amendments here. Okay, so saxophones in bar 3, can you actually modulate to E flat and play double time here? And we do that until bar 9. Have you got that? Yes, okay. Rhythm section, you follow that, but also in the beginning, it's a different key. This is your key. Okay, have you got that? Drums, yes, please stay out of this part completely. And the singer says, okay, and so what do I have to do? And the band leader says, you do what you always do, darling. So that's the cliche of, people who are soloists who don't really do their job very well.
Yeah.
And I understand that in jam sessions, you meet those people as well. Sometimes they say, oh, I'd like to do this song. And then they make an awful mess and it doesn't sound good. And the players who are playing for very little money to support the jam, they're upset. But if somebody comes who you don't know and they do a good job, you have to support them.
Yeah.
You really have to support them because that's another member of the jazz community. And how do we have a job in music is because not only ourselves, but lots and lots of other people are doing concerts, which are teaching the audience that they can come to a concert and that they can enjoy music. If we're not all ambassadors for music, it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
So why would you be such an exclusive club?
No one wants to sit also as an audience and see bad vibes on stage.
Oh, it's the worst.
It's the worst.
Battles on
as
stage.
As an audience member to sit and see bad vibes on stage, I feel it's like secondhand embarrassment, and it's just
it makes you feel very, very bad.
Feels really bad.
Embarrassed. Yeah.
Really bad. Feels uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Ongemakkelijk.
Ongemakkelijk.
Just like sitting like there, like in this feeling of also, especially because you have a responsibility towards the audience in the sense that they took from their time, they made an effort to come and listen.
And they probably paid money as well.
They paid money for it.
Yeah.
They organized an evening for themselves to be able to come and
they're
be
stuck there
entertained.
until the break.
Yes. It's funny. Ugh. And what would be the advice you would give yourself when you just started your career? I mean, now with all the knowledge that you have, because you were about 27, right?
Yeah.
So 27, 26. So now you're 51.
Yeah.
So it's been quite a chunk of time.
Yeah.
What would be the advice you would give yourself with all the experience you have?
I would say think big, dream big. Because the interesting thing was I've come from a very European background, which is you think small, you don't take big steps. As I said, I've only moved within a 50-mile radius of where I was born. I have become a touring artist, which is kind of a miracle to me. I don't know very many players in Holland who do what I do, the amount of travel in the, let's say, instrumental rhythm world, not the classical world. There are a few in the classical world who do that. But it's not something that my parents did, let's say it that way. And so I've always thought a little bit small, and things have only really started to happen when I started to dream a little bit bigger, and I dared to dream a bit bigger. And I actually learned that from the Americans. Going to America and seeing how people... somebody long ago, like maybe my first visit in America was 2004. There was an audience member, maybe on my second visit, maybe third. It was 2005 or 6. And she came to me and said, "Oh, I love that. And I'm going to be in Europe." I said, "Oh, yeah." She said, "Yeah, I think I'm thinking of moving there." I said, "Oh, okay. Yeah, all my stuff's in storage. I've sold the house. And I was thinking of moving to Paris." I said, "Oh, great. Why Paris?" "Yeah, I don't know. Could be London too." And I'm like, my brain's exploding. How could you not know where you're going?
The risk-taking, yeah.
The risk-taking and the just putting your stuff in storage, selling your house, which is getting more and more, valuable, much better than your money just sitting in a bank account. That's all the things we think about in Europe. It's very conservative and very, very easy. We have very easy lives. Our parents have made those lives for us.
Yeah.
In America, people just go, "Nope. I'm going to try this out." Or I have a passion. I'm going to spend all my money on my passion. That's another thing we don't do.
It's free market mentality.
Yeah. And there are good and bad sides to that mentality. But really what is a good side is that people are daring and they talk to each other about this. They're daring to dream. So they will say to me, "What's your dream?" And I'm thinking, well, I don't know. I'm just playing music. I'm touring. I'm kind of happy. And then I thought, well, what can I dream about? So that's something I really learned from my American visits, and that's something I would have told would tell myself as a 25, 26-year-old. Dream big. And actually, when in the pandemic, I started to think more about the impact my music could have, and to also be a little bit more ambitious with who does it reach and how is it perceived. And as a result of that, and that's, I don't think, a coincidence, I was on a state visit with the royal family, and I got to open the Water Summit in the United Nations in New York.
Cool.
Because I'd written music that had a message, and that was a dream, that was an idea. And so I think if you don't dream, things don't happen for you. So dream. Yeah.
Awesome.
Take it seriously, the dream as well. Don't feel like you're naive. Be naive, embrace it, and go for it,
I mean, that's a thing we talked a lot here in the podcast, not specifically your episode, but with other, let's say, artists or creatives, that thing of you got to have some naivety in there or some delusion about I can make this because, odds are against us in that sense. Everybody will tell you, but come on, Tim, this is like hard, but come on, man, come on, settle down. Come on, think more conventionally. But no, we're not. We chose for an unconventional life, actually. Yeah. We chose for something that puts us in situations that are not necessarily something that is certain. So that's why it's good to be delusional
or actually
about
purposely uncertain.
Purposely uncertain in that sense, So it's good to have some delusion in that sense, because that paves also the way for hope.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't delusional about going and meeting the gypsies, if you weren't delusional about having your first tour, if you weren't delusional about, doing that tour in England, what you were saying, then it wouldn't give you these experiences.
No.
And, there are like uncomfortable feelings that are coming with that. And there's this uncertainty is a very uncomfortable feeling, of course. But it also opens a gate for you to be surprised and to be amazed about what might come.
Yeah, and that's the learning aspect. If I always think as an artist, it's I think maybe the only job, but maybe I'm wrong, there are other jobs that have that too, I'm sure, but the only job I know where you can stay a kid all your life, and a kid dreams. Kids have no boundaries.
Yeah.
They look around and go, oh, I'd love that, you know? So that's what we're allowed to do. More than that, we're not allowed to do it. We're required to do it for our job, to do our job well. And I would say most artists who feel like they're not being appreciated or who have, who are not happy about their careers, I would venture, I would love to talk to them, but I would venture that their dream capacity and they're trying to get their dream to become true is not as good as it should be. And some people are very, very comfortable being artists who are not very much in the public eye. I mean, it has to suit your personality. I do like playing for an audience. I love talking to people. I love playing for them and making people feel something and bringing them together. And that's my main thing in the end is what music can do is it brings people together. And we have that responsibility to be ambassadors for music. But we're actually further than that. We're ambassadors for humanity, because humanity is about having people in a room, not on social media, talking to each other and yelling at each other. Put them in a room, the yelling's not going to happen. So it's much better to keep bringing people together than to have AI and technology take that role, because it's a dangerous, slippery slope that we're on a long way down already.
Yeah.
So it's an uphill battle for us. But I think that's another great dream to have, is to fight that uphill battle and to bring people together. And that's my mission. And I will continue doing that as long as I can. And during that process, I will learn a lot that I wouldn't have learned if I'd, just done my at-home playing, or I'd had a job with maybe Google doing my translation thing. That would have been so much less inspirational. So for me as a person, it's enriching that I can have this job. But my responsibility is to make it for me anyway, that's how I feel about it. It's not for everyone, but how I feel. My responsibility is to do it the best possible way I can. The dreaming.
Yeah. Tim Kliphuis, thank you so much for doing this.
Avishai, thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for listening us there and into the score. And we will, we're asking the same as always. Like, subscribe, follow us. It's a growing community. We have so many more interesting guests to have you here. And we will see you at the gig.